mother, a son, a chance. 1950, Chicago. Louis Armstrong was in a hurry, but he stopped. Because a woman had said something. My son is blind. That word stopped Louis cold, because Louis knew what it meant to be disabled, especially black and disabled, especially in 1950 America. The woman ran inside. Seconds later came out with a child, 12 years old, Thomas, holding on to his mother's arm. His eyes were open, but empty, seeing nothing. Louis knelt down, got to the child's level. Thomas, he said gently, I'm Louis. I hear you play piano. Can you play something for me? Thomas was shy, looked down. I don't have sheet music. I just play what I hear, Louis smiled. That's the best way. Just play for fun. Don't think. Just feel. Thomas, guided by his mother, entered the restaurant. A piano sat in the corner. Thomas sat. Placed his hands on the keys, paused for a moment, then began to play. And Louis Armstrong's jaw dropped, because this wasn't an ordinary child, wasn't ordinary talent. Thomas was a virtuoso, a prodigy, playing complex jazz harmonies, improvising, as if music flowed from his soul. Louis was shocked, had never seen anything like this in his life, especially from a 12-year-old child, especially from a blind child who'd never had lessons. In that moment, Louis made a decision, would change this child's life. No matter what it took. Thomas was 12 years old, born blind, had never seen light, but he saw music everywhere, in every sound, in every note. Had taught himself piano by listening to records, Louis Armstrong's records, Duke Ellington's records, would memorize every note, then play them perfectly. 1950. His only chance was Louis Armstrong. His mother knew it, waited outside Louis's restaurant for hours. Finally, Louis came out. The mother ran, pleaded. Louis initially refused, was in a hurry. But then one word changed everything. Blind. Louis stopped. Listened. And a life changed, not just Thomas's, Louis's too. Because that day Louis saw something in a child. Didn't just see talent, saw a gift, a special gift, something beyond music. The child played the piano. Louis cried, because it was so beautiful, so pure, so real. Louis made Thomas a promise that day. I'm going to help you. I'm going to open doors. I'm going to make sure the world hears you. And Louis kept his word. Found a scholarship to Juilliard. Introduced him to famous producers. Opened doors. But Thomas did something. Something nobody expected. Didn't become famous. Helped others instead. Other disabled children, other underprivileged ones. Dedicated himself, and when he passed away at 29 years old, left a legacy. Not a musical legacy, a human legacy. But why did Louis Armstrong, one of the busiest musicians in America, stop that day for a stranger's child? What was it about that one word, blind, that changed his mind? And what special gift did Thomas have that would inspire hundreds of lives? Before we explore this profound story of compassion, hidden talent, and choosing service over fame, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. What Louis Armstrong saw in that blind 12-year-old will change how you think about talent, disability, and true success. To understand that June afternoon in 1950, we need to go back, not just hours, but decades, to understand who Louis Armstrong was, what he'd experienced, and why the word blind stopped him in his tracks when he was already late for an important appointment. Louis Daniel Armstrong was born August 4th, 1901. New Orleans, Louisiana. Grew up in extreme poverty, in neighborhoods where survival was daily work, where opportunities were scarce, where being black meant facing barriers at every turn. But Louis had found music, found the trumpet, found a way to transcend his circumstances. Throughout his childhood and young adulthood, Louis had known many musicians with disabilities. New Orleans jazz culture included blind musicians, deaf musicians, those with physical limitations. In that world, Louis learned something crucial. Disability didn't define talent, didn't limit artistic potential, sometimes even enhanced it. Blind musicians often developed extraordinary hearing, could detect nuances others missed, could memorize complex pieces after hearing them once, could improvise with remarkable creativity. Louis had seen this firsthand, had played with blind musicians, had learned from them, had respected them. By 1950, Louis was 49 years old. At the peak of his career, one of the most famous musicians in America, constantly touring, recording, performing. His schedule was relentless, every day filled with obligations, every hour accounted for, every minute precious. Louis owned Armstrong's Jazz Cafe in Chicago's South Side, a restaurant that served food and featured live music, a place where Louis could connect with his community, where local musicians could perform, where black families could dine with dignity. On the morning of June 15, 1950, Louis had a packed schedule. Breakfast meeting with his manager, rehearsal with his band, lunch with potential sponsors, and at 3 p.m., a crucial recording session, a session that had been scheduled for weeks. That couldn't be postponed. That required Louis to be there on time. Louis was at his restaurant finishing some paperwork, checking on the kitchen staff, making sure everything was running smoothly. At 2:45, he looked at his watch. Time to go. The recording studio was 20 minutes away. He was cutting it close. Louis grabbed his trumpet case, said goodbye to the staff, walked to the front door. His car was parked just outside, driver waiting, engine running, ready to go. Louis opened the door, stepped outside. The June sun was bright. The street was busy. People walking, cars passing, normal Chicago afternoon. Then he heard it, a voice, desperate, urgent. Mr. Armstrong. Louis turned, saw a woman running toward him from inside the restaurant. He hadn't noticed her there. She must have been waiting, watching for him. The woman was in her early 30s, thin, worn-looking, clothes clean but old, face showing the strain of hard life, but eyes full of determination, full of hope. She reached Louis, out of breath, panting, trying to speak. The information in this video is compiled from documented interviews, archival news, books, and historical reports. For narrative purposes, some parts are dramatized and may not represent 100% factual accuracy. We also use AI-assisted visuals and AI narration for cinematic reconstruction. The use of AI does not mean the story is fake. It is a storytelling tool. Our goal is to recreate the spirit of that era as faithfully as possible. Enjoy watching. Mr. Armstrong, she said between breaths. Please, just 1 minute. My son. He's so talented. He just needs someone to listen, please. Just 1 minute. Louis looked at his watch. 2:47. Had to leave now or would definitely be late. He looked at the woman, saw the desperation, the hope, felt bad, but had obligations, responsibilities. Ma'am, Louis said kindly, I'm so sorry. I'm late for a recording session. It's been scheduled for weeks. I can't miss it. Maybe another time. Bring your son by next week. I promise I'll listen then. Louis turned toward his car. The driver had the back door open, waiting. Louis took a step, then felt a hand, gentle but firm, on his arm. He turned back. The woman's eyes were filled with tears now. Mr. Armstrong, she said, her voice breaking. My son is blind. He's only 12 years old. Music is all he has. Please! Time seemed to stop. Louis stood completely still. That one word, blind, changed everything. Louis looked at the woman differently now, not as an inconvenience, as a mother fighting for her child, fighting against a system that gave disabled black children almost no chance, almost no hope, almost no future. Blind? Louis asked quietly. The woman nodded. Born blind, never seen light, but he hears everything, plays piano by ear, taught himself. Nobody will give him a chance because... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Louis understood. 1950 America. Segregated. Discriminatory. For a black child, opportunities were limited. For a blind black child, opportunities were nearly non-existent. Schools wouldn't take him. Music programs wouldn't accept him. Teachers wouldn't work with him. The world had written him off before he'd even had a chance. Louis looked at his watch again. 2:50. Should be leaving. Would definitely be late now. Looked at his car, driver waiting patiently. Looked at the woman. Then made a decision. Bring him out, Louis said. Let me hear him play. The woman's face transformed from desperation to joy, from tears to smiles. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. She ran back inside the restaurant. Louis stood on the sidewalk, thinking about his recording session, thinking about the producers waiting, thinking about the time, but also thinking about that child, 12 years old, blind, no opportunities, no hope, until maybe today. The woman emerged from the restaurant with a boy, small for 12, thin, holding tightly to his mother's arm, walking carefully, feeling his way. The boy had dark skin, short hair, wore simple clothes, clean but worn. His eyes were open, but unfocused, not seeing, just existing in darkness. "Thomas," the mother said gently, "this is Mr. Armstrong. He wants to hear you play." The boy's face lit up. "Mr. Armstrong, the Louis Armstrong?" Louis knelt down. Put himself at eye level with the boy, even though the boy couldn't see him, felt it was respectful. "That's right, son. I'm Louis. I hear you play piano. Can you play something for me?" Thomas looked shy suddenly. Nervous. "I don't have sheet music," he said quietly. "I just play what I hear. I don't know if it's any good." Louis smiled, put his hand on Thomas's shoulder. "That's the best way to play, son. Sheet music is fine, but playing from the heart, that's where real music lives. Just play for fun. Don't think. Don't worry. Just feel the music and let it out. Can you do that for me?" Thomas nodded. "Okay, I'll try." Thomas's mother guided him carefully, through the restaurant door, past the tables, to the corner where an old upright piano sat. The piano was there for entertainment. Local musicians would play during dinner hours. Now it would serve a different purpose. Thomas sat on the piano bench. His mother helped him position correctly, made sure he could reach the pedals, then stepped back, giving him space. Louis stood a few feet away, watching, waiting, curious. The restaurant staff had gathered, sensing something important was happening. Thomas placed his hands on the keys, gently, feeling them. Getting oriented, took a deep breath, then began to play. Have you ever witnessed a moment when someone revealed extraordinary talent that nobody expected? How did it make you feel? Share your experience in the comments. What happened next shocked everyone in that room. Thomas didn't just play notes. Played music, real music, complex music, started with a jazz standard. But Thomas's version, with embellishments, with improvisation, with feeling. His fingers moved across the keys with confidence, with precision, with something that looked like sight but wasn't. Was memory, was feel, was pure musical instinct. Louis stood frozen, listening, watching, unable to believe what he was hearing. This 12-year-old child who'd never had a formal lesson, who'd taught himself by listening to records, was playing at a professional level. Better than professional. Was playing with genius. Thomas moved into more complex territory. Jazz harmonies, difficult chord progressions. Runs that required years of practice, yet Thomas played them effortlessly, naturally, as if they were the simplest things in the world. But what struck Louis most wasn't the technical skill, was the emotion. Thomas played with feeling, with soul, with depth that seemed impossible for a child. Each note carried weight, each phrase told a story, each improvisation revealed understanding of music that usually took decades to develop. Louis felt tears forming. This wasn't just talent. This was a gift, a special gift, something rare, something precious, something that had to be nurtured, protected, shared with the world. Thomas played for about 5 minutes, then brought the piece to a close. Beautiful resolution, perfect ending. His hands lifted from the keys. The restaurant was silent, everyone stunned. Then Louis started clapping, slowly, deliberately. The staff joined in. Thomas's mother was crying, tears of joy, of relief, of hope. Louis walked to the piano, knelt beside Thomas. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "that was extraordinary." "How long have you been playing?" Thomas looked shy again. "Since I was 5. I heard your records, Mr. Armstrong. Listened to them over and over. Tried to play what you played, taught myself." Louis shook his head in amazement. "You taught yourself that? Just by listening?" Thomas nodded. "I can hear the notes, in my head. Then I find them on the piano. Sometimes it takes a while, but eventually I figure it out." Louis stood, looked at Thomas's mother. "Ma'am, your son isn't just talented. He's extraordinary. He has a gift, a special gift. And I'm going to help him. I'm going to make some calls. Get him into a proper music school. Get him the training he deserves." The mother started crying harder. "Oh, Mr. Armstrong, thank you so much. We've tried everything. Nobody would take him, said he couldn't learn, couldn't keep up. But he can. I know he can." Louis nodded. "He's better than most students with sight. This boy is going places, I promise you that." Louis looked at his watch. 3:15. Was already late for the recording session, very late, but didn't regret it, not for a second. He just witnessed something special, something important, something that mattered more than any recording session. Louis went to the recording session, apologized for being late. Explained what happened. The producers understood. Some were skeptical, but Louis insisted. The boy had extraordinary talent, had to be helped. Over the following weeks, Louis made calls, lots of calls, to music schools, to private teachers, to scholarship programs, met resistance, lots of resistance. He's blind, can't read music, won't be able to keep up. Would be a liability. Louis fought back, argued, sometimes pleaded. The boy has more talent than most sighted students. Just needs a chance, an opportunity. Finally, in August 1950, Louis got a breakthrough. Juilliard School in New York, one of the most prestigious music schools in America, agreed to audition Thomas, with Louis's personal recommendation. The audition was in September. Louis arranged for Thomas and his mother to travel to New York, paid for their train tickets, their hotel, their meals, wanted to remove every obstacle. The audition was nerve-wracking. For Thomas, for his mother, for Louis, who attended to support them. The Juilliard faculty were skeptical. A 12-year-old blind boy from Chicago, self-taught, seemed unlikely. But they listened, had to. Louis Armstrong was personally vouching for him. Thomas sat at the grand piano in the audition room, faculty members watching, Louis standing in the corner holding his breath. Thomas played the same way he had in the restaurant, with skill, with emotion, with that special gift. When he finished, the room was silent. Then one faculty member spoke. "That was remarkable. Truly remarkable. We've never had a blind student, but we'd be honored to have you here. Full scholarship," another faculty member added. "You have extraordinary talent, young man. We'll work with you, adapt our teaching. You'll do wonderfully here." Thomas was accepted. Full scholarship to Juilliard. Historic. The first blind black student in the school's history. But more than that, a chance, an opportunity, a future. Please subscribe if this story is inspiring you. The most powerful part is still coming. Thomas studied at Juilliard from 1950 to 1954. 4 years of intensive training. Learning music theory, composition, performance techniques, thrived despite challenges, despite skeptics. Graduated with honors. Louis stayed in touch throughout, visited when in New York, checked on Thomas's progress, continued to mentor and support. After graduation, opportunities opened. Recording companies interested. Concert halls offering performances. A career in music. Fame. Success. Everything most musicians dreamed of, but Thomas surprised everyone, turned down most opportunities, chose a different path, wanted to teach, wanted to help other disabled children, other kids like him, who needed someone to believe in them. Thomas opened a music school in Chicago, 1955, small building, donated by local church, free lessons for disabled children, blind, deaf, physical disabilities. Any child who wanted to learn music could learn. Thomas taught them with patience, with understanding, with the same kindness Louis had shown him. The school grew. By 1960, served over 100 children. Many went on to professional careers. Many simply found joy in music. All found hope, found confidence, found belief in themselves. Louis visited the school multiple times, saw what Thomas had built, felt pride. Deep pride, this young man, who could have been famous, had chosen to serve instead, to give back, to multiply the gift he'd been given. In 1965, Thomas's health began declining. Never had strong constitution. Years of hard work, long hours teaching, late nights composing took their toll. By 1968, Thomas was seriously ill, knew his time was limited, didn't complain, continued teaching, continued serving, continued giving. In early 1969, Thomas passed away. 29 years old, too young, too soon, but had accomplished so much, had touched so many lives, had created a legacy. Louis Armstrong was devastated, had lost a student, a friend, someone he'd watched grow from scared 12-year-old to accomplished teacher and mentor. At Thomas's funeral, Louis spoke, gave a tribute, through tears, through grief. "I met Thomas 19 years ago," Louis said. "Thought I was giving him a gift, a chance, an opportunity. But Thomas gave me the gift, reminded me why music matters, not for fame, not for money, but for healing, for helping, for hope." Thomas lived that every single day, taught hundreds of children, changed hundreds of lives. His music plays through them, will play forever. That's true immortality. That's true success, Louis continued. "When I stopped that day in 1950, was late for a recording session, almost didn't stop, almost drove away, but Thomas's mother said one word, blind. That word stopped me. Made me remember that talent doesn't depend on sight, that genius comes in unexpected forms, that sometimes the most extraordinary gifts come in the most unlikely packages. Thomas taught me something else too. That success isn't measured by fame, by money, by recognition. Success is measured by impact, by lives changed, by love given. Thomas could have been famous, could have filled concert halls, could have made records, but he chose differently. Chose to teach, to serve, to give back. That's the highest form of success. That's the truest form of greatness. Louis finished his tribute, played his trumpet, a slow, mournful melody, for Thomas, for all the children Thomas had taught, for all the lives he'd touched. The music filled the church, filled the hearts of everyone there, reminded them that Thomas's gift wasn't just musical, was human, was about seeing people, really seeing them, even though Thomas himself couldn't see. After the funeral, Louis made a donation to Thomas's music school, enough to keep it running for years. Enough to ensure Thomas's legacy continued. The school still operates today, over 70 years later, still serving disabled children, still offering free music lessons, still changing lives. Named the Thomas Armstrong Memorial Music School, in honor of Thomas. And in honor of the man who stopped for him that June day in 1950. Louis Armstrong lived 2 more years after Thomas passed. Died in July 1971. 70 years old, having changed music forever, having touched countless lives. But among all his achievements, all his records, all his performances, all his innovations, Louis always said one thing mattered most, stopping for Thomas that day. In 1950, when he was late, when he was busy, when he almost drove away. Louis said in one of his final interviews, recorded in 1970, says if I'd driven away that day, if I hadn't stopped, Thomas might never have gotten his chance, might never have gone to Juilliard, might never have opened his school, might never have touched all those lives. That one decision, to stop, to listen, to care, that might be the most important thing I ever did, more important than any song I recorded, more important than any show I played, because Thomas multiplied what I gave him, gave it to hundreds, who will give it to thousands. That's legacy, that's immortality. Today, the story of Louis Armstrong and Thomas is taught in music schools, used as an example, of recognizing talent, of looking beyond appearances, of understanding that gifts come in all forms. The corner piano in Armstrong's Jazz Cafe, where Thomas first played for Louis, still exists, preserved in a museum, with a plaque, telling the story, reminding visitors that sometimes the most important moments come when we're late, when we're busy, when we almost walk away, but choose to stop instead, choose to listen, choose to see, really see the person in front of us. Thomas's story reminds us that disability isn't inability, that blindness doesn't mean limited vision, that sometimes those who can't see with eyes see most clearly with hearts. Thomas saw music, saw children who needed help, saw opportunities to serve, saw ways to give back, and in seeing all that, created something beautiful, something lasting, something that changed hundreds of lives. Louis Armstrong's story reminds us that being busy isn't an excuse, that having obligations isn't justification for walking past need, that sometimes the most important appointment is the one we didn't schedule, the one that interrupts our plans, the one that asks us to stop, to listen, to care, because that unscheduled moment might change a life, might create a legacy, might touch eternity. June 15, 1950. Chicago. A June afternoon, a busy man, a desperate mother, a blind child, a piano in the corner, 5 minutes of music. That changed everything. Louis was late for his recording session. The producers were annoyed. The schedule was disrupted, but none of that mattered because Louis had witnessed something special, had found something precious, had started something that would outlive them all. Thomas played piano for 70 years, well, for 17 years while alive, then through his students, then through their students, the music continuing, the gift multiplying, the legacy growing. Louis stopped when he could have driven away, listened when he could have left, cared when he could have ignored, and because he did, hundreds of lives changed, hundreds of children found hope, hundreds of families found joy. That's what happens when we stop, when we listen, when we see, really see. The person asking for help, the child needing a chance, the gift hidden in unexpected form. Thank you, Louis Armstrong, for stopping that day, for recognizing genius in a blind 12-year-old, for teaching us that the most important moments often come disguised as interruptions. Thank you, Thomas, for showing us that success isn't fame, that legacy isn't recognition, that greatness is measured in lives touched, not applause received. Two men, different generations, united by music, united by compassion, united by understanding that gifts come in all forms, that talent transcends disability, that love multiplies when given away. The piano sits silent now in that museum, but if you listen closely, you can still hear it. Thomas playing, Louis listening, both teaching us that sometimes the greatest gifts come wrapped in the most unlikely packages, and sometimes the most important choice is simply to stop, to listen, to see, forever.